today as the Rome Statute enters into force for Ukraine. After the ratification, there is a period of time that is necessary for the ratification to become effective. And that's why the entry into force of the Rome Statute for Ukraine is the 1st of January 2025. That means that now Ukraine is fully a state party to this international treaty. And as a state party, it has all the rights and obligations that are attached to the states parties. The most important of them potentially are the rights to vote for the adoption of the budget, for adoption of amendments to the Rome Statute, for the elections of the judges and of the future prosecutor and deputy prosecutors, in some helping shaping the future of the international criminal law. This is very important also for us at the court. It is one more step towards universality. The ICC does not have a universal jurisdiction. Its jurisdiction is essentially based on the states that are granting us this responsibility and this duty, and this is why it's very important to keep moving towards that. We hope that this new ratification will also open the door for others to follow, that this is a sign of faith that Ukraine is given to the ICC, and that others will see it as such and will also participate to getting us closer to this dream of universality of the Rome Statute, where all the states would be united in this global fight against impunity and for the fight to build a more just world. Yes, it is totally possible for Ukraine as a state party to present candidates, and then that would be subject to the vote of the assembly. There are specific requirements for judges at the ICC, specific experience in terms of either international law or criminal law, and of course being qualified for the highest judicial positions in their own respective countries. And then also there is every 3 years elections of 6 judges at the ICC. So of course we hope that Ukraine will be participating in all the various possibilities of cooperation and supporting the ICC, including with presenting candidates for judges, but also with having more colleagues from Ukraine, we hope as well. The procedure for the election of the judges happens all at the Assembly of States Parties. There's a state that would present the candidate, and then there are elections. Of course, as I mentioned, there are specific conditions that has to be met, so there is a kind of a small committee that check the qualifications of the judges and makes recommendation to the Assembly of States Parties. There is also certain requirements that are related to the equal and fair representation of the different regions of the world, and also of the different gender at the ICC. So this is something that needs to be taken into account when the Assembly is voting for each new 6 judges. First, I need to explain to the people that it is important to understand the ICC does not have cases against the states, but it's always about individual responsibility for alleged crimes. Now, who can make the accusations or bring the charges against suspects? It's not states, it's actually the ICC prosecutor. What states parties can do is they can make referrals of a certain conflict or certain amount of crimes to the prosecutor, and then the ICC prosecutor can decide to open an investigation and check which crimes actually fall under the ICC jurisdiction, and based on the evidence that are there, decides to bring charges, meaning to ask the judges to issue either arrest warrants or summonses to appear. So it is for the ICC prosecutor to decide on that. You know very well that there is already an investigation opened in relation to Ukraine, but I just want to highlight that it's not the states that bring cases, it's the prosecutor who can decide to do that. But of course the cooperation of all the states is very important, because it allows the prosecutor to gather the evidence in a more efficient and a faster way, of course. Ukraine had in the past accepted the ICC jurisdiction, and based on that there was an investigation that is currently open, and it continues. So within this investigation, the prosecutor has brought several cases, and he's still ongoing with the investigations, and maybe other cases and other charges will be brought by the ICC prosecutor. Ukraine ratification does not necessarily mean that we have to open a new investigation. There is already an investigation that is open based on Ukraine's declaration previously. But what does it mean when a state becomes party to the Rome Statute? There is a set of rights. As I mentioned, the rights to vote for the adoption of the budget, for the election of judges and prosecutor, deputy prosecutors, for the votes on the amendments to the Rome Statute, etc. There's also a set of obligations that were not there for Ukraine before, the obligations, for example, to participate to the budget. So the financial obligations related to that. One thing that the adoption of the ratification of the Rome Statute might facilitate is actually the cooperation with a state that is party, because then the state might be more interested in creating channels to cooperate in transferring in some the Rome Statute into the national legislation, and that can facilitate the cooperation to a certain extent. Well, the budget of the ICC is adopted by the Assembly at a whole. So we have 125 states with Ukraine that will adopt the budget. The budget is roughly around 190 million euros, more or less. And the burden of the budget is divided on all the states, but within a certain proportion, because it's based on the same formula like the United Nations, meaning that it takes into account the size of the economy and the population of the country. So when the economy is big and when the number of the population is big, then there is a big portion. That's why we have, for example, Japan and Germany as some of the top contributors to the ICC budget. This is an obligation for the states parties to contribute. Now, I don't have the numbers of what would be eventually the contribution of Ukraine, but it will be proportionate to its size of economy and of population.